Joining us for this PAX Online panel. I was like, what is this? Already forgot. Doing great. It's lovely for all of us to be here and for all of you to be here. I hope you've been enjoying yourself so far. Today, we are going to be talking about cosplanning, because if I can portmanteau a word, I will. But we're going to be focusing on techniques and methods and ideas and tips for how to start, and also, very importantly, how to finish your next cosplay or your current cosplay. Maybe you're working on something and you need some advice. So I am joined by 3 other wonderful cosplayers, and I'm just absolutely delighted. So I will start off with some introductions, and then I will pass it around to the group. My name is Lauren, or you can find me at RandomTuesday online. My day job is that I am a producer with Wizards of the Coast, and I have been cosplaying for a while. And I'm going to talk about, we're all going to mention our strengths and our weaknesses. My strength when it comes to cosplay and management is very much in the kind of tracking and motivation, in that middle of the process. But I'd say my biggest weakness is estimating correctly the amount of time it's going to take me to do any one thing. So we're all here, and not all of us know everything, but we're here to impart our wisdom and our knowledge to you all. So stick around. Birdie, do you want to take us away next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Birdie, or Elephantbird Cosplay. You can find me L3fantbird. That's elephant with the second E as a 3 bird. Maybe I should have made that easier to say out loud, but it's too late now. I'm a full-time art student studying costume construction, and I think my greatest strength and my greatest weakness are actually the same thing, which is that I have ADHD. So I have no concept of time, I have no concept of time. That makes organization very difficult for me, but it can also be a magical superpower where when I am really excited about something, I can just do it forever with no regard for anything else happening. It lets me do very ambitious and fun projects when I can wrangle it to let me finish. So I'm going to talk about some of my strategies for working around that executive dysfunction.
I think there's a car alarm going off, so Sola, go for it.
Well, I guess I'll go next. Hi, I'm Sola of Sola-heika Cosplay. I've been cosplaying for around 10 years, I think. The lines kind of get blurred towards the beginning. It happens. My day job is I'm an accountant for a local university, and while that is kind of a more boring occupation compared to what I do in my spare time, I think that my kind of business-oriented background really helps me with breaking down bills, and especially with shopping, because I do number crunch all the time. That really helps me keep an organized, tight budget, because I know while I might have money to spend freely on this hobby, I know some people struggle to balance their books on leisure and real life things. So I hope to impart some of that wisdom as well. Oh, wait, and my weakness. I find that while I don't get burned out working on projects, I struggle to keep up motivation if I find that things aren't really going the way that I envision when I'm first working on stuff. It's like that slight perfectionist kind of mentality that I have an issue with that I need to work on.
Vicky.
My name is Vicky. I go by Vicky Bunny Angel, cosplay online. Vicky Bunny Angel's just my name on everything like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. I'm a marketing executive by trade, so I do brand development as well as just basic social media marketing and digital marketing in general. And I'm also a streamer on Twitch. I've been cosplaying for over 13 years at this point. I've sort of lost track because I realized people can calculate my age based off of how long I've cosplayed. Not that it really, really matters. But my favorite thing about cosplay is the problem-solving aspect. I really, really get a huge adrenaline rush from looking at something that's 2D and thinking of how I'm going to make that into reality. So my strength lies in theory crafting, and I absorb information from everywhere, and I just store it in my brain for the right project. I'll be like, oh yes, I've heard of this method from over there. I'm going to apply it over here. My biggest weakness, though, is actually getting things done. So it's kind of hilarious that I'm on this panel. I think I struggle most with motivation, as well as overestimating my physical ability. So when you've had a major accident happen to you, your body's not the same, and it's hard to come to terms with that sometimes, but it's something you'll get used to.
All right. Well, with that, let's dive into. We're breaking this down into like the three main parts because there's a beginning and a middle and an end to every project, and that seems like the most logical method. So we're gonna start with the beginning of a project and kind of getting started. So if anyone wants to touch on like any tips or your process for breaking down a project, like, great, I've picked this idea. How do I decide how I'm going to make this? What I'm going to need to buy? What are my materials? What are my processes? And kind of that sort of initial piece, because I know that can be very overwhelming to go from concept to like the 2D to the 3D part.
So one of my favorite things that I've learned at art is the value of sketchbooks. They're amazing. So I oftentimes, just so I can conceptualize a project, will start by sketching out every part of it. And I'm not good at drawing. It's not my art form, but it still just helps to kind of understand what garments I'm going to be making. I also I have a couple just pages out of my planning book that I'm working on right now, where I would print out the
I think I
would
pop
actually
that one
print
up
out
for
the
you.
reference. Yeah. You could grab that.
Do
But I'll actually print out the reference and like color code it so I know, okay, this part is going to be smocking and this part is going to be made of my main fabric and this is going to be an accent fabric and this is a kit that I'm buying. And that helps me a lot really break down in my mind what's going to happen. I think my name is actually covering up information. I think my name was actually covering up like the key that I had to.
Oh,
But
let me.
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So if you can see, I actually like highlighted each part of the costume in a different color. And I also just anytime I need to figure something out, it goes in the book. So all of my stitch diagrams go right in the book. All of my math, all of my samples, any fabric swatches I buy. And then I have this really tactile thing that I can, anytime I have a question about what I want to do, it's in the book. And if you compete, it also doubles great as a progress book. I competed for my first time at Katsucon, and the judges were like, "Oh, this is so fun! I want to touch everything." And so,
That's very
sketchbooks
cool.
are a joy.
I've never thought of putting like smocking examples or something like that into an actual sketchbook, because I definitely, I also do the sort of full turnaround sketch with a lot of very squiggly annotations.
I've actually seen in museums when artists for theater would have to, they would call it their like build Bible. They actually would keep samples in case they needed to replace certain pieces of fabric or stuff. They would keep the sample where they bought it, try to get as much information if you do have to go back and realize, oh man, I don't have enough of this fabric. Let me go back to the store and try to match whatever I have. Building off
If I ever dye something, I will write down the 10th of them. So if I ever have to dye it again.
Oh, I should share my dye plans with you guys sometimes.
Oh yeah.
So I did dyeing for 6 years. I worked in a dye shop. And so for pre-planning things like dyeing, or when we figured out that you need to dye something, I write down the grammage and the colors just so that it's all the exact same ratio so that I can replicate the dye bath perfectly every single time.
Sola, what were you saying? Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. So building off what you said, if you do not have the ability to draw, because I also do not, I find that using blank figure drawings for fashion or even artist reference drawings for bodies, that is a great way to start, and you can build off of things. I do that especially if you have the sketch of the Wild Mother that I sent, maybe that. So yes, that is a great example of kind of what I do. It helps me really decide what type of materials I need, what I use, because I'm slightly a little more messy than Birdie. I just take a piece of paper and I mad dash scribble like everything I need. Like I draw possible patterns. I kind of explain how I want things to look and lay. And you can actually see at one point I had one design for a crown, and the other time I scratched out and drew another one. So
Mhm.
it really helps you with the design process. And if you keep these, you can see where you started and where you finished. And personally, what I do is I go to the point where I write as I'm drawing the sketch. I figure out what kind of materials I need, and I'll write that down as I go, and then I'll
Yes.
compile it on one piece of paper, double check it, see do I think I need more in case I mess up something, because accidents happen. You do mess up patterns and projects. Uh, and I'll kind of
Yeah.
give myself a little more yardage just to be on the safe side. And I'll write that like 3 or 4 times, and it can be a slightly more messy aspect. But I find that if you write down things a couple times, you really know what you need, and you decide, oh, I don't need that. I have it in my stash, or I do. I need this because I've. It's been times where I write down the project list, I figure out all my materials, and then I realize, oh, I don't have any zippers or thread that'll match this fabric. Let me get some of that while I'm at the store. Because there's nothing worse than realizing you don't have the notions that you need to finish a project, and then your seams are all wonky.
I think to add on to what Sola said too, it's important to keep your inventory organized and sort of actually know what you have. I used to, when I was younger, I was not so organized. I used to run to the issue where I would buy too many zippers. I would buy duplicates of rivets and stuff because I didn't realize I already had it. Or sometimes I'd forget I bought it. But now I keep everything labeled in boxes, in clear boxes, so I can exactly see at a glance what I have before I go out on a trip to spend more money.
That's something
So,
that
And I will say,
I gestured
I
back here,
have
but I have a
just
lot
like box.
of the clear.
the clear helps, yeah.
Sorry, Birdie, what were you saying? Uh-oh. Yep, there we are. I think we lost her for a moment. I was, we'll pause for a second in case we need to, but I found that clear boxes and open containers are really helpful because then I can kind of pull them and look inside rather than like having to open. I used to keep all of my fabric in these like really deep tubs, and in order to get to any of them, I'd have to like dig to the bottom.
Yeah.
And then I watched Marie Kondo's show on Netflix, and I was like, that method for t-shirts, it will also work for fabric. And so now I keep them all like in narrow fabric bins that are kind of short so that I can just open them up and see all of the fabric that's inside, which is really helpful for not losing track of what I own.
I have just the worst time making boxes. If I can't see something, it might as well. So I found that those IKEA like cube shelves are just everything.
Oh, yeah.
The calyx ones?
Yes.
Yeah,
I want
all
like an entire wall that's just nothing but cat. That's my dream home.
Yep.
And we also, just kind of touching on this, keep in mind that while these methods might work for us, they might not work for you. You really just kind of think around and try to look at other cosplayers and see what they do. Because I have a dedicated workspace that I've had for a couple years. But before, when I was just starting out, I only had my parents' kitchen dining room table to work on, and that was about it. Like, we kept my box of fabric behind the Christmas decorations. So, you know, don't feel bad if you don't have these methods to use for your personal organization. Just kind of do what you can to make it work.
I made myself miserable for years trying to neurotypical people, and it wasn't until I realized like I can't fight ADHD, I have to work with it, that I actually got anywhere. And that is true of everybody. It's just very pronounced.
One of my approaches when I'm thinking about, because I like have a tendency to overhaul my organization systems like every so often, but my thought process is, what is the problem that I'm running into? Like, what is the struggle that I'm having? So, like, it used to be that I had all with the fabric, I'd be like, I can't find stuff that's at the bottom. Like, and it's annoying, and I don't like pulling this off the shelf, and I hate doing this. And I was like, okay, what can I do to mean that I don't have to pull all of the fabric out to get the one at the bottom? Well, I can use shorter containers. So rather than saying like, this is how so-and-so does it, like think what is the thing that you're having a hard time with, and then make your sort of strategy around that. And that's like, that's kind of works for all of this. Like try all of these things that we're suggesting, but you can find other things that other people are trying to, for sure.
That's why there's 4 of us talking about this.
I think also when it comes to planning, Sola brought up this really good point that everyone's situation is different, everyone's space is different. Sometimes the cosplay you want to do may not be something you can feasibly do in your space, and that's something you might have to consider, that you may not have, like the space is spread out, I don't know, like
like a
6
ball gown
feet of fabric or something, you know what I mean? You just have like this tiny table, which is fine. Just work within what you have, or maybe you can ask, you start planning, can I borrow a friend's living room or something? And can I plan work days somewhere else? So try to work with what you have. And if you do have a small space that doesn't have a lot of storage options, then what I used to do when I was living with my parents and I could only do things in my bedroom is I would buy things at a time and only work on one component of the costume rather than buying a ton of things, because there was no place for me to store my materials. So
Yeah.
it just
As
meant more
someone
shopping
that
trips,
has-
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think that leads us into the next
Yeah.
sort of major topic, which is shopping, like how and purchasing materials. We kind of touched on like keep your stuff organized so you know what you have, but presuming there will be many projects where you don't have the stuff that you need. Does anyone have sort of preferred methods for acquiring new materials? Let's leave it general that way.
I shop mostly online, but that may just be because I don't have a lot of options. When it comes to fabric, Toronto's really easy to buy fabric for, but when it comes to like wigs, foam, and those other types of materials, I always have to order from the States. So in my mind, I've already built up okay, it's going to take me 2 to 3 weeks to wait for it to come here. So I should probably buy that stuff first. That way, by the time they get here, it's probably going to take me another 2 weeks to get the motivation to do something with it. So then it'll actually be done on time. Because overnight shipping anything from the US is a lot of money up to Canada. But when it comes to planning, I do top down. I pick up my wig first, because normally I buy that from, I don't know, either Arda or Epic. And then if it needs warbler or foam, I'll buy that from. Are we allowed to say brand? Are we allowed to say stores? We're not being paid. This is not being paid.
None
at
of
all.
this is sponsored. These are just
I
the
buy foam
places
from, like,
that we go to.
TNT or Red Moon, and these places are not near me, so it'll take at least a week to ship. So if the costume calls for those materials, then I have to buy those first, and then wait for next paycheck. And the next paycheck, I buy what's available to me locally, because I could just do that any day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do live in the United States, but I'm in a similar situation. Like, I've been doing a lot of gold work lately, and you can't buy gold work. The only place it's manufactured is Pakistan. So same, like, needing to work around shipping times is the biggest challenge.
Yeah, I like to pre-shop. That's my thing. I will go on to like, I'm like, I'm probably going to buy this fabric at Joann's, or maybe I'll go to one of the local fabric stores. But like, I like to look at everything online and think about the materials that I'm going to get. But I'm a very tactile person, so I still go into the store and I buy it in the store. But I find that looking through online, one, answers the question of, is this something I can find in the store, or do I have to find it online? And gives me helps me with the budgeting stage too, because I can start estimating how much money I think things are going to cost me. So I find.
So I am a complete overplanner for when it comes to shopping, just because of the type of person I am.
I love it. Tell us more.
It goes down into the point where I determine what I'm buying like on a monthly basis. And I only do that because after gaining years of experience, I start learning the little things that certain stores do. I take into account Black Friday sometimes if I need to get certain things from, like, say that what was it? Most special occasion fabrics from Joann's always go on sale Black Friday at very certain days of their Black Friday sale. If I need fake flowers, I'll try to wait until after the spring, because that's when Joann's will put their fake floral fabric flowers on sale afterwards. So it also takes into account like when I'm going to be wearing a certain project, I'll try to um, budget out that way. And also, speaking of budget, so like I said, and I am an accountant, I do budgets all the time. I set an amount for a specific project, like off the bat. Personally, what I do is every paycheck, I take a little bit out of my paycheck, and that's just my entertainment cosplay fund. I don't touch it for anything else unless I can avoid to. Like if something emergencies come up, then it's the first thing to go because it's fun and I need to do I need to pay for things that I need to live first. So that really helps with budgeting for me. Just if you have the means to take out money already, do that so then you don't feel like you're struggling in other ways. You know, work with your budget if you can, do what you want to do, but also remember you are a living person with other obligations. I also pre-shop, so I'll look on different sites that I really like. I'll take that into account of processing and shipping times and such. Sometimes I know buying fabric online is a gamble because you never 100% sure the feel or the color of certain fabrics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll even take into account, oh, is it cheaper to buy it on store like online, but it's not the right color? Can I dye it then?
Mm-hmm.
Will that, and I'll add certain prices, like certain more expensive for dyeing materials, that sort of thing. And what I also do, and not everyone does this, if you have a tighter budget, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but I just calculate everything out down to the tax without any coupons because I know that is going to be the top of my budget in case I can't get any coupons for whatever I buy. Now, if I can get coupons, which I usually can, luckily, then I know I'll be under budget in case something else comes up, like I'm missing something or I mess up and I need more fabric. But that's just something that I personally do because I know then if I can reach that amount, then I know I'm good.
One thing I want to say about buying online and that kind of uncertainty, if you know it's a website that you shop from frequently, like there's one, I have a tendency to buy a lot of stretch fabrics from spandexworld.com because they sell a lot of different kinds of stretch fabrics. And so I have ordered in the past because like you normally have to pay for shipping per sample. So I've ordered like 5 or 6 samples at a time, being like, this might be a fabric that I'll want to use for a different project, and then hold on to those and all that information because you can say like, now I already have the sample for this fabric, and you can just go to that and know what you're getting rather than like having to take that gamble every time.
Mm-hmm. One website that I shop Baron, they have a deal where if you buy a yard of fabric, you get free samples with it. So it's always like whenever I buy from them, I'm always like, okay, what do I think the next order might be? Get those samples at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to buy from Silk Baron soon. I finally have it in my budget that I can afford a large amount. I'm so excited.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I too. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
This might be a budget, not really a budgeting trick. Like, I wasn't able to get a lot of Baron Silk, the costume I wanted, so I will usually think in terms of like, where can I use this really nice material to just add a So I can't make this 10-yard dress out of Silk Baron silk, but I can get 2 yards of it and then have little bits of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a material you really want to use, but you can't get like a ton of it at once, you can always think about other ways in a smaller way.
Yeah.
And I think having that mix of materials makes it richer anyway.
Yeah. So let's kind of tackle like the last sort of major topic for beginning, and then we'll go to the middle of our project, our hypothetical project. And this is something that I've talked about struggling with, so I'm here to defer to all of your expertise in estimating time. How do you for yourself estimate? Because I am a chronic underestimator. My big thing is I'm like, yeah, this will take me 3 hours. 10 hours later, I am halfway through. So if thoughts on that, and then the sort of related thing is, how do you track your projects? What are your tools for once you've done your planning? How do you like to keep track of the project while you're going? Because that kind of leads us into the once the project's going aspect.
With experience too, eventually you'll realize what's consistent about yourself and your working speed depending on what you're doing. Like I know for myself how fast I can sew, or how fast I can pattern draft or cut foam out, or actually what my physical limit is for, cutting foam, because that's a physical manual labor on my shoulder, which I did injure a few years back. And so I'll know you'll do that for a few hours a day. And you'll also know how long it takes Plastidip to dry, how long it'll take my 3D printer to print a thing. All of this comes with experience. So it's all of that kind of adds on to how I structure what I do first. I will always do the task that takes the longest first, and then everything else sort of trickles down in decreasing order of how long it takes me to do it, if that makes sense.
So like Vicky said, that is a really good point. Like, you have to realize what you can do. I take a full day just to cut out fabric because I'm on my hands and knees and I hate it, and it's just a huge big old struggle. But I can sew a garment together in like a couple hours just because I sew on a very fast machine spinning. Wow, I lost my train of thought. It really does come with experience, and I find that if I break down certain parts of the project, like Vicky said earlier, buying like head to toe, I'll also break down projects head to toe first. Like, I'll tend to work on the tops of things, and then the pants, and then the boots and armor or whatever else I'm using. I'll give myself like a full 2 days to style a wig, even if it's simple, just because I never know if I finish styling and go, I hate this. Let's wash it out and do it again, because it happens, and you just want to try to give yourself time. Personally, what I do is I made it a rule ever since I got out of college, because now I have a full-time job and I come home in the evening and I just want to sit down on the couch and watch TV. I'll just sew and do cosplay on the weekends. I'll basically give myself a couple hours on Saturday and Sunday, and that's the times that I get to work, just so I don't burn myself out. And of course, it takes me longer to do projects, but I find that I'm not so tired when I'm going through the motions of making everything. And you just have to realize, what can I squeeze into that amount of time that I'm giving myself.
I think what you just said about deciding when your crafting time happens is so incredibly important. Like I said, I'm a full-time student. I do, on average, about 100 hours. I have very little free time. And a lot of the times when I do have that free time, I also just want to go sit on the couch. So I basically decided, my school doesn't have class on Friday, so Thursday is my Friday. So I said, okay, Thursday nights, I'm exhausted. I don't want to do homework anyway. Thursday night is crafting night. And this is the night that I have to not feel guilty and take my own time, work on my own project. Any other day of the week, like if I have a random hour here and there, I might do something. But carving out that time allows me to say, this is time, not instead of might be more productive because it's for school. And also allowing myself to say, like, if a girl's around, I just can't make it happen. I'm saying to myself, cosplay this week, and that's okay. But you have to know that that's what you're sacrificing if you.
Yeah, I mean, that feeds into some other stuff I think we'll touch on a little bit later about being okay with not finishing. I know, because like I mentioned, because I'm bad at, and I know, like at this point, I know I underestimate, so I always pad out my time. I'm like, I think this is going to take me 3 hours, and then I sit there and I have a moment with myself, and I'm like, Lauren, that's going to take you a whole day. So yeah, knowing even if you're bad at estimating how long you think a task might take you, knowing that you're bad at that is also a thing you can kind of own and be honest with yourself about.
Yeah, like if I see something, I'm like, yeah, that'll take me an hour. Budget.
Yeah, budget more. So what do people use? Oh, I was gonna say, what do people use to keep track of their stuff? Do y'all tend to prefer paper, pen, digital, a mix therein?
I use a mix. Like Birdie, I also use a sketchbook. Mine is on the floor over there, sitting in the corner of shame. And I also use Google Keep because it allows me to access it from both my phone and my laptop. And it's constantly updating, so I can literally have it open on my phone and my laptop and be typing at the same time on different things, such as if I'm like upstairs in my workroom or downstairs in my other places in my house. And just bringing it back for a second to padding out your schedule. Also, give yourself time to be a normal person. Because I have been working on the same project for, when did I start? Like, I think I started this project in March, and consistently every Saturday and Sunday I work for about maybe 6 hours on the project. And this week, this is the first week that I was just like, no, I'm tired. I need a break. I need my own Saturday and my own Sunday. So it's okay to give yourself time, because remember, unless this is your full-time job, it's okay to take a break and not do something, which can help you with your staying motivated, which we'll talk about later.
I use a giant whiteboard, and I write down all of the tasks that need to be done. I find it interesting that you guys do it by hour, because I don't allot an hour like, 5 hours on a wig or whatever. I allot like days. So therefore, it's just kind of
Same.
up in the air. Like, I don't know, it'll take 3 to 6 hours, but it'll be done on Tuesday type thing. So I've tried apps. I've tried to do a digital planner, and I've tried to do like the phone. I think there's a cosplay progress app that everyone
CosPlanner.
uses.
I
That
did.
one. I've tried
I
it.
did that.
It does personally doesn't work for me. I'm not a digital person. I think I get a rush from when you finish a
Yeah.
task on my whiteboard. I cross it out, and I feel really good about that. I love it. So that's what I use. I use a whiteboard.
Yeah, I tend to
I'm the same.
be a bit of a
Like,
mix.
if it's purely digital, for me, if something is purely digital, like it's not there. I need the act of handwriting something to brain. So everything I do is by hand.
I do a lot of notebook because I just like kind of have it with me all the time. But I like Shola. I also like having like reference images and things like that. If I know I'm going to go into a store and buy something, I like to have those in an app like Keep or even just on my phone, so that I know I can access them. And kind of if there's like important notes or something like that, then I'll keep it that way. I also love Post-it notes. So like I'll have a page and it's like, here's the main page, and then I'll slap Post-it notes on for like, this is what I'm going to work on today. So I can like rip the Post-it note off and be like, I'm done. And it kind of keeps the visual clutter to be really focused on what I'm working on in the moment, which I think all of this kind of leads us nicely into staying on task and motivating ourselves.
Can I say one quick thing about writing things down? If something is like super crucially urgent and I can't forget it, because can't lose my hand. Yeah. I can lose a Post-it. I can lose a notebook. I can't lose my hand. So if you lose things, you got unlosable notepads.
So I'm going to start calling these now. It's my unlosable notepad.
I once saw, this is off topic, but I once saw a person with like a notepad like tattooed on their forearm. So when they just would write stuff on their forearm, it was like writing on
that would
piece of
work.
paper.
What?
Absolutely genius.
Wow.
That's So yeah, middle of the project. Now
staying on topic.
There's a lot of, one of the things I feel like I want to sort of summarize, like there's a lot of upfront stuff that you can do to make your life easier as you go through the cosplay, like the project, like planning what you're going to buy, keeping track of all of the different pieces and the parts, having a Bible or your kind of build guide to refer back to, all kind of leads into like the actual work that you're doing on the cosplay and making that part easier. So what sort of things do people do to keep themselves motivated to continue working on a project? Or start?
Honestly, talking about it. Yeah.
I have a lot to say about motivation just because I guess enemy sometimes. ADHD is notorious for making you really excited about a project and then just dropping it after or touching it again. So something that I have really worked hard on is how to keep it exciting the whole time. And I know we've talked a lot about like working top down and like only buying materials as you need them. But for me, the only way to keep a project going is to work laterally. So I have maybe 2 or 3 elements that I'm switching between, so I can trick myself into thinking it's a new shiny thing all the time. Yeah. Especially, I do a lot of hand embellishment type things that I might be working on months on a 3x3 square. the only way that I'm not going to get bored of that is by saying, okay, I can switch today's smocking, today's embroidery, and go back until they're done. And it can be very frustrating because you'll go for months without actually finishing anything, but then you finish like 5 things at the same time, and it's great. The other thing is, if there's a piece of the costume you're dreading, consider if you actually have to do it. I hate cutting fabric. Yes, I actually do have to cut fabric. You can't get sewing without cutting out your fabric. But I was looking at a piece of armor and like, God, I just don't want to make that armor. And then I thought to myself, like, but actually I could make this out of fabric instead, and that would be fun. So consider your own skill sets. Very little time. I don't spend my free time doing something I don't like. So make sure you are enjoying your project. Modify it if you don't enjoy your project, and don't feel pressured to stay working on the same thing at the whole time if you're bored. That's my speech.
No, it's Brad. Vicky, you were going to talking about it.
Yeah. I post on social media a lot. So usually when I announce that I'm doing a project and start a progress thread on Twitter, typically that keeps me motivated because now I feel like, oh, I have to show off by the end of the week or maybe every few days. I want to show off that I've made some sort of progress. And usually that keeps me going. Usually around like the cosplay, the con crunch time, especially for like KatsuCon, when we're all doing progress threads on Twitter, we're all like creeping on each other's. It's like, it's that immediate validation you get from your peers, and as well while you're posting on social media, you can validate other people too. I'm like, oh, that's great, Lauren or Sola, that's looking awesome. Keep going. So I find group motivation helps a lot too through social media.
Yeah, I think with social media, it's easy to think about only posting the finished stuff, but I love seeing people's work in progress, and like it is genuinely a motivator.
I have my Twitter build threads are like my favorite things. I read this study once though that said like, if you're going to talk about an unfinished project, make sure like you have something solid, because I have seen people like announce a project before they've actually begun it and they got all excited, but it can actually like, you get the dopamine rush you would have gotten project by telling people you're going to do the project. So don't use up all your excitement on talking about it.
I think that also does relate back into the point that we'll probably end with, which is that like, if you don't finish it, it's okay to also admit to that, like on the internet, to be like, yeah, I didn't finish this product. Like I'm putting this on hold or whatever it is. Like you don't have to be the perfect finisher.
Yeah.
I did want to touch on it's interesting you talk about sort of switching projects because you kind of need to keep them new and fresh. This is again, you might want to find different strategies for yourself. For me, I love finishing things like hardcore. So I will actually create like artificial places where I can be like, yeah, it's done. So I will sometimes break down something bigger into even smaller pieces. So I can be like, I did all of the blank part of this, so that I can get a sense of completion more frequently than I might if I have to do something that's it's really big and might take a long time. So you can kind of artificially like trick yourself into being like, yeah, I did a thing. Check.
Yeah. I can also, my working laterally can sometimes, I've been wary. When it came time for KatsuCon, I just simple wear. So I said, okay, we have 1 week to make this costume. And it was literally just a t-shirt, dress, and a wig. And I got the whole like new costume rush, and I suddenly so refreshed to go back into the big build.
Shola, do you want to kind of add anything about motivation or staying on track?
I guess I find myself is just like in the same veins of you guys of posting on social media and seeing my build threads, being able to go back and look at my first project pictures that I took where it's just a random pile of fabric on the floor and realizing, oh, it's on my dress form. I also find that when I'm getting towards the end of the project, I'm like, all right, let's get it off the dress form so we can work on something new. Let's take it off and put it on the shelf until it's time for wearing a con. Because I try to finish my stuff pretty early before the cons because I don't like con crunch anymore after dealing with it and almost giving myself a couple panic attacks when in my younger years of that not finishing it, I just swore off it. I'm like, I can't do that to myself anymore. And also, it allows me to help friends. I have like whipped out an entire sword for a friend for his cosplay just because he was like, I can't do this. And I'm like, well, I finished my stuff, so I can. So it's just kind of work with what works for your schedule. While some people can really push themselves and get all their stuff during con crunch, it just drains my energy and I just want to go to sleep all the time. So do what works for you.
Work in your limits.
Yeah.
Oh, but I
think
can
I'm the
talk about.
opposite of Sola. I work the fastest the week of the convention. I don't know how. Like I go into what I call my magic cosplay zone mode, where I turn into a cosplay Super Saiyan. And I don't know how I blink and my costume is like suddenly like 75% done. I don't know how it happened. I spent 4 months doing nothing until the final week.
A lot of people
Yeah.
are like that. And
Yeah.
I part of me wonders because the main con that I like to go to is KatsuCon, but Katsu always like lands on my birthday. So I think that's why I'm like, let me just do nothing on my birthday.
That's
But that could
true.
just be me.
Yeah.
Katsucon always lands during midterms for.
Ooh.
I'm like watching and.
No, see, PAX, I say this not just because this is PAX Online, is like one of my big conventions every year, and it's always like right at the end of like summer vacation, so I'm like, it's a perfect spot. This is what I do with my summer, or I did when I was a teacher. Now I don't understand the concept of time. I wanted to kind of touch on in the sort of the middle section is also like dealing with setbacks, like making mistakes or realizing like you did something wrong or you don't have the materials or suddenly your timeline gets thrown off because life happens. What do you do either to keep yourself motivated during that or sort of process it like related to cosplay?
I can talk about this more. So the current project I'm working on that I've been working on since around April, Marches, I got all materials before many of us got locked down for COVID. I had all my materials and I was ready to start on this project, and I started it and realized I don't like the material that I bought. Let me get some new material. And then another thing happened and I needed to order like more and more material. So if you find that you are getting set back with something, try to do something else. So while I was waiting for my fabric to come in, I realized, okay, let's do something a little relaxing. So I cleaned out all my old fabrics and I got rid of scraps, or then I would work on the wigs instead. Do what you can if you need. There's a pupper. So do what you can if you find yourself dealing with setbacks to keep yourself on track, but just move your schedule around. Your schedule doesn't have to be super, super rigid if you find that you can just move things around, do something now instead of later, and just kind of work with your schedule and work with yourself, because the last thing you want to do is get so upset that you can't keep up the schedule when you just kind of relax a little bit, go with the flow. It's a hobby. Don't get too crazy about it.
Sorry, my dog is
being pupper.
demanding. Yeah.
Vicky,
I think it's very valid to feel disappointed though in a moment, to be like, oh, I messed up and now I don't have enough materials to finish a costume. That actually happened to me with my KatsuCon costume, because I did buy fabric from Joann's for my Fire Emblem costume, because it was the perfect color, the perfect weight and weave and drape that I had wanted. And I bought the entire bolt from a Joann's when I went in Buffalo like months ago. When I actually was sewing the costume, and this comes into me being in Canada, I realized the week of I had messed up my collar, and I was doing vinyl, hot vinyl cricket. What do you call it? Oh my god. Heat press, thank you. And I had heat transferring, or so I had messed that up, which meant I couldn't use that fabric because I can't peel off the transfer anymore. It's like it's wrecked now. So I couldn't even take it apart and resew it. So I was out about a yard of fabric from a Joann's that I don't have access to. And so I had to accept that I wasn't going to be able to do the costume. So, yeah.
I had a similar experience where I Spent about a month mocking the pieces for the sleeve pattern, and then discovered that I had drafted the sleeve completely incorrectly. So sometimes, like, I think it's important, like what Sola was saying, try and get the day back and like do something productive. But it's also okay to recognize that like today was a loss. I'm in a bad mood and I don't need to be crafting right now. Like, go get some air, take a walk. I didn't touch the sleeves for 2 months after that happened because I just said, I can't even look at this. I have other things. I'm going to go work on something else. And now that I'm back to the sleeves, like, I'm ready to take them as a challenge instead of a. So if something really just bad, like, put it down. It's okay.
For me, the sign is normally I injure myself too many times because I'm like frustrated. I'm like stabbing my fingers with needles or just like whatever it is. I'm like, I gotta walk away. I've injured myself like too many times, or I do the same mistake repeatedly. So like I sewed this sleeve inside out 3 times.
I did that recently, and it was awful.
So like recognizing those moments where often it's because I'm physically really tired, like it'll be late at night or I've been sewing for a really long time. So just knowing that taking breaks is incredibly important to staying motivated. Like if I'm too tired, then I'm just cranky and then I'm not having a good time cosplaying and I'm just going to make more mistakes.
Something that I've had to learn both as a cosplayer and as a student is sometimes the most productive thing you can do is sleep. Or get some air. Sometimes it's more productive to stop working.
Yeah, which is beautifully ironic.
And try not to be too rigid with what your idea of a con should be. So it's okay if you don't finish all 5 of your planned cosplays. It's okay to rewear something. And it's okay to be like, you know what, maybe I just won't cosplay and I'll help my friends instead. I'll be a handler. I'll help my photography friends be a mobile light stand. You know, there's other ways to enjoy a convention. So don't, like, I understand cosplay for me also is a huge source of enjoyment. I'm not saying it's not, but there are other ways to have fun and don't let it bring your entire weekend down.
Yeah. Which I think leads us into the last part, which is like the end of our project, kind of thinking about everything is culminated. We've tried to stay on track. We've tried to finish everything. So I kind of want to talk a little bit more about crunch and a little bit more about kind of other things you might not consider as being part of a cosplay, but you probably want to be thinking about.
I guess I'll talk about why I try to avoid crunch, and I guess Vicky can then talk about why she works best under crunch. Like I said, after so many times of just staying up really, really late, not getting any sleep, and then working on a cosplay that like almost falls apart when I get to the con just because I've rushed too much to finish it and cut all these corners that I know I should have put more time into construction-wise, that put a bad taste in my mouth for crunch just because I know I don't work well under a deadline. I know I need to spread out my time, work diligently, and I have more fun realizing, okay, it's like a week before the con. All right, great. My costumes are finished. They're all nice and pressly ironed. I can put them in my garment bag. I can start packing. I can realize, oh, what underwear, because that's important. What underwear do I want to wear for certain costumes? Do I need anything? Do I need I can go through my makeup kit, realize, oh, I need more wig tape or eyelash glue or safety pins, just whatever I need. And it gives me, when I'm not crunching, gives me the time to then figure out what else I need for the con itself and not just my cosplay.
Something that I do when I recognize that is I'll basically like look at everything that still has to get done and assign it a day. It's like, okay, today is sleeves day. Today is wigs day. Today is shoes day. If you don't get it done today, that's it. That was your day. And if that makes the costume unwearable, then let it go. And that kind of just helps be a realistic what I'm actually accomplishing. And if a costume is going to be a lot, I don't want to be up until 4 a.m. the night before I have to trying to finish it and be miserable trying to finish it. I'd rather write it off 3 days early and have those days to actually prepare for the con.
So what I do if I know I'm going to be crafting up to the last minute before a flight or we have to drive down to a convention is I'll actually pack my baggage ahead of time. So all of my like day clothing, underwear, makeup, and all that, I'll have it done and already in a suitcase, ready to go. That way, the last pieces of my costume, if I'm still rushing to finish it, only has to get thrown on top, and then we're ready to go. Because I find when I did it in reverse, where I would just focus all my time on my costume and leave packing to the last minute, I would forget things. I would forget socks, I'd forget makeup, eyelash glue, like you said. So I find when I can't rush pack luggage, but I can rush sew instead, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of
Yeah, and
sense.
I will also like if there's a there if I work in terms of probability. If there's a 90% probability of me finishing a costume on time, I'll go for it. If it is less than like 80%, then I might accept it's not going to get done and instead focus on maybe pulling out something from my previous closet, revamping an old costume, or like doing something else that's like still crafty but takes less time, like making a flower crown or something new to shoot for content but isn't a full-blown costume. And then get that done and then I'm on my way.
And I also want to touch like this last minute thing about con crunching. If you do it, that's fine. Like as long as you are willing to put into the time and possibly give up other things to con crunch, that's fine. But also think about the other people that you might be affecting, such as if you are bringing stuff to work on in the hotel room and you are painting on top of the expensive Katsukan Gaylord furniture and the room is not in your name, maybe don't. Like I had a friend who got it on the desk that I put like my credit card down. They didn't find out, so they didn't charge me. But I've also gotten paint on another hotel's like bed sheets because I was trying to crunch in the middle of the hotel room. Like, so realize while you might be willing to put in forth the effort, maybe don't. You might be affecting like your roommates, or you might
If-
not be.
My advice
you are
is for the
someone's
whole planning
bride.
process. Sorry?
If you are someone's ride, don't crunch instead of leaving on time. That's like.
Yep, that could be a thing too.
Yeah.
Vicky, what were you gonna say?
I think that goes into the planning process though. So for me, I do plan for crunch. I do not do painting or warbler work or anything that requires a heat gun or noisy tools. Like drumbling, all that is done at home. So those are activities I recognize have to be done before I even step foot in a hotel. The things I plan that I plan to do in a hotel, like let's say the 10%, let's say I finish 90% of my costume, 10% is not done. 10% of the things that I do in a hotel room is I will style a wig, I'll hand sew buttons on, or I'll hand sew like, embellishment and all that, because that's like non-intrusive type activity typically. So that's what I do in my pre-planning. So I don't think anyone should ever try to do armor the night before. We've had people bring spray paint, and we've seen spray paint in the hallways of Katsucon. We've seen it. We've seen the newspapers in the stairwell, and we were like, who did this? What? Okay.
I've been very fortunate that most of my conventions are local. So like if I'm crunching at 2 a.m, it's like I'm painting at home. Which is the plus side of being based in Seattle and going to PAX. But I've done it, and it's frustrating, and then I'm tired and I'm cranky and I'm grumpy. So like for me, it's not something I like to plan for, but sometimes it happens. One of the things I do always think about with my cosplay is that the concept of minimum viable product. It's like a project management term, I guess. But it's the idea of like, what's the bare minimum that I need to have, or I am okay with having to wear this cosplay to a convention. And often for me, that means I do clothing and then I think about props. And I often won't bring props with me to a convention because they're not done. And then I will plan to do a photo shoot when I'm finished. And so I will finish and then schedule a photo shoot. And that kind of helps alleviate, one, the disappointment of not being finished. Because it's like, well, it's not done yet because I haven't done my photo shoot. And like, I'll have it at the photo shoot. And it also helps mean that I'm not overwhelmed with not having too much to do. So that's another.
Like sometimes you just need to get it on your body.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Like, is it okay if I don't have the exact right shoes? Sure, I'll just wear my plain black ones with this one. And then like next time I can make the real shoes for it. And so kind of thinking about what do you need to have so you can accept that maybe that cosplay is not going to be as finished as you want it to be at that convention. And you have opportunities to finish it later.
And honestly, I think the majority of people don't notice the missing things off of your costume as much as you think you do, as much as you think they do. They'll just be like, oh, that's awesome. And you're like, no, it's not. I'm missing this, that, and that. And they're like, really?
Falling apart.
And honestly, if they point it out, they're not nice people, and
No.
you don't have to talk to them.
Yeah, screw them.
So, any last thoughts that people want to say before we sign off and go upon our merry crafting ways?
Try to give yourself enough time to plan. Realize that it's okay if things aren't going your way. Try to just keep up with your schedule. And if you can't, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be a fun hobby. Don't lose sleep or lose energy or just get so worked up like in your hobby that you realize you can't enjoy just the rest of your life like outside of it or wearing it. Realize that it's okay to not be able to do something right then and there. It can be done later, and it's okay.
Stay hydrated.
Sleep.
Eat properly. Sleep.
Sleep
the
is not
worst part
optional.
of it. Yeah, sleep is not. The worst thing you want to do to yourself is negatively affect your own health to do this, because then all of a sudden your productivity is just going to go down anyways. So take care of yourself first.
Birdie?
You guys really said everything I was going to say. Play is fun. You should be
What they
having
said.
fun. And if you're not, change your methods.
Try things. That's kind of my, like, try planning stuff. Try anything that we suggested. Make a notebook. If it doesn't work, try an online thing. If that doesn't work, try something else. Systems should be flexible and should suit you and your needs.
Yeah.
Cool.
Don't feel guilty about something not working.
Yeah. All right. So on that, shall we have, let's go around in the same order, or I guess in the opposite order that we started with, and then we'll sign off. So, Vicky, who are you? Where can people find you? In case they forgot.
Thank you all for watching. Again, my name is Vicky. I go by Vicky Bunny Angel online, and that's how you can find me on all of the social media platforms. Yeah, it was nice talking with you all.
Yeah.
And again, I'm Sola of Sola-heika. You can also find me on most social media accounts. I don't check them all the time, but that's okay. Yeah, just remember, it's supposed to be fun. Work with your schedule, work with yourself, do what you want to do. You don't have to be like everyone else.
Birdie?
I am Birdie of Elephantbird Cosplay. You can find me at mostly Twitter, but also as L3Fintbird.
Awesome. And I am Lauren, or you can find me online at RandomTuesday. Thank you so much for joining me for this panel. Thank you, everybody, for watching it. Enjoy the rest of your PAX online, and yeah, I guess we'll see you around. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.